Today, we're going to be doing the top 10 highest damage bloodlines in Shindo Life. So if you guys appreciate this video, if you guys just want to see more in the future, hit the like button, subscribe, ring that bell, guys, and comment below what your highest damage bloodline that you actually use is. Let's get right into the video. Now, coming in 10th place is going to be Tengoku. This is the skin Tengoku Platinum because I just like it more. But the reason why Tengoku is going to be in 10th place is because, as you guys have previously known in my videos that I posted before, I regarded Tengoku as a damage-only bloodline. And you guys can see the amount of damage it does is ramping up pretty quickly. It's doing quite a bit of damage here. So we're already at 500k. So this bloodline, it does a lot of damage, but the cooldowns are extremely long in it, which makes it do actually less damage than other bloodlines in the same period of time. But as in just a huge amount of burst damage, it is quite a large amount. So that's the reason why Tengoku is going to be in 10th place. There's not really much else to say for Tengoku. It's just extremely high damage bursts, but extremely long cooldowns. And he's dead. So coming in 9th place is actually going to be Tetsuo Kaijin. Now, Tetsuo Kaijin, guys, you guys almost never see this bloodline in my videos just because I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've never used this bloodline besides for like testing purposes, the showcase and stuff like that. But something I do know about Tetsuo Kaijin, this bloodline does an absurd amount of damage when you actually stack the ability. So first of all, the M1s do 10k damage without knocking back. That's just absurd for M1 combos. Insane M1 combo bloodline. You have the C spec, which is a dash attack. It really doesn't do all that much damage, but it is a stun ability. You have the F spec, which the explosion afterwards does a bit of damage. You have the counter ability right here, which I'm pretty sure it's just the dash attack. Yeah, so you knock him down and then you can dash attack into him. The dash attack also does a lot of I just glitched out. The dash attack also does a bit of damage as well, but the main damage of Tetsuo Kaijin, first of all, the F spec, like I said before, the explosion does a lot of damage. The E ability of Tetsuo Kaijin does a lot of damage because it like stacks afterwards and things like that. And then the third ability also does a lot of damage. So, I mean, like, overall, like, each of the individual abilities may not do all that much, but when you start stacking these abilities together and you just start, like, spamming out the wazoo, like, spam this, and then you just keep spamming, the bloodline overall does do a significant amount of damage. And the cooldowns are quite low, which obviously adds on to, like, how good it is. Now, coming in 8th place is actually going to be Boramaki Gaiden. Now, Boramaki Gaiden, in all honesty, doesn't really do that much damage from its actual abilities. Like, the damage isn't bad, but the abilities are definitely more utility than anything else. Obviously, the M1s do a lot of damage, but I'll get to that in a second. The E spec does do a bit of damage. It does like 60k. And then the third ability of Boramaki Gaiden also does a bit of damage. Like, the moves themselves don't do that much damage, but the mode does such an absurd amount of damage, I had to put it in 8th place on this list. So the C-Spec is an AoE ability that over the course of its duration does 100,000 damage, plus it does 30k more, so it does 130k from a single ability. The F-Spec is another 80k damage, right? And then obviously you have the counter, which also does another 80,000 damage. Actually, I think it does up to 100k, not to mention the fact that the cooldowns for these are absurdly low for like what they do. So you could just spam this and like this bloodline ends up doing an absurd amount of damage. Obviously, the more people there is in like the AoE radius, the more it does. But that's also true for all the other AoE abilities. But yeah, just insane mode damage. Now, coming in 7th place is actually going to be Aizen. Now, Aizen's mainly going to be here for, I'm going to be honest, it's mainly for the mode itself and not really anything else. Why does it do so much damage? Because Tengoku just does a lot of damage, bro. But yeah, so first of all, the M1s are quite large. I mean, the M1s, they do the damage of M1s. The moves aren't actually the reason why this is here at all. So you obviously, like, you guys are looking at this like thinking, oh, this bloodline doesn't do that much damage. It's like pretty mid in the overall damage it does because the moves don't do that much damage. But I want you guys to see something real quick. Here is the C spec. So he died before, oh wait, no, he didn't die. So the C spec actually could do upwards of like 140,000 damage in mode from a single ability. That's the main reason why Aizen's actually going to be here, is because it has one of the highest damage abilities in the entire game. Even though the entire bloodline doesn't do that much damage, the mode itself is just absurd with the C spec. Now, coming to 6th place is going to be Snake Man. Now, for a long period of time, Snake Man used to be the highest damage bloodline in the game, but it actually got nerfed. But Snake Man still does a ton of damage, which is why it's going to be in 6th place. Now, before I show you guys the mode abilities, you have the third ability of it, which does 65k damage. Not bad. I forgot to hold down the second ability, but it's like a hold down ability like Shindo Life Lightning. The first ability also does 83k. By the way, guys, if you guys are unaware, the first ability used to do 150,000 damage. It still is in insane ability because it's literally instant. So it's an instant 83k that you could just throw into your combos for free. Like, this bloodline is still absurdly good. It's just people don't really use it because there's better. And then obviously you have this attack right here. You hold it down. You just kind of use it as a combo extender. The M1s don't really do that much damage, but the actual mode is where a lot of the damage comes in. So first of all, like I said, first ability, 84k. The C-Spec does almost 100,000 damage alone. The F-Spec also does like 80,000 damage. And then you have the Weapon Spec, which is a counter ability. But this counter ability also does a lot of damage. So when you throw all of these abilities together, this bloodline ends up doing an absurd amount of damage altogether. And just keep in mind, guys, it used to actually do even more damage than this. It used to do even more damage. It was just absurdly good before, if I'm going to be honest. And like I said, the counter here, it also is quite good. It does a bit of damage as well. Now, coming to 5th place is actually going to be Code. Now, the first two abilities of Code really don't do, like, barely any damage at all, if I'm going to be honest. Like, the M1s, I guess, do an alright amount of damage. And, like, the, I missed. You could, like, teleport them to you and stuff like that. Like, the abilities do okay amount of damage. But the real damage from Code, I'll show you right now. So, this is my little combo. You guys can feel free to copy it if you want. Like, you guys can copy this. I've done this since Code released. So, basically, you use the C-Spec after you stun them, and then you drag them with the third ability through all of these. And you guys can see from those two abilities, I just did 240,000 damage. Their abilities are all on cooldown as well, and there's more traps on the ground for them to step into to do more damage. Now, the counter of Code Gaiden puts their abilities on cooldown, which isn't that good. And then the F-Spec is just it just drags them to you. All of the damage from Code comes from the C-Spec and the third ability, just comboing them together. But trust me, dude, when you combo these together, and like I said, this is my combo. I've been using it since Code released. It does an absurd amount of damage. And sometimes you can get even luckier, and it does like 350,000 damage, depending on how many of these you drag them through. But yeah, just those two abilities together, it just does an absurd amount of damage. I had to put it in 5th place. Now, coming to 4th place is actually going to be Shindai Rengoku. Now, Shindai Ren, obviously, guys, this goes without saying, it is a very, very high damage bloodline, which is one of the reasons why it is so good in PvE content. So the clones here, the clones do a lot of damage. Like, the clones themselves do, like, I would say, like, 200,000 damage to the bosses, and to people, it'll probably do around 140 unless their place lock's done. Now, the first ability of Shindai Ren also does a lot of damage. It does, like, 70k in one ability, which is pretty nice. I'm not even going to bother showing you the C-Spec because it really doesn't do that much. Weapon Spec also doesn't do that much. The F-Spec is actually really, really good. So, if you guys are unaware, the F-Spec actually had a huge nerf. It used to be one of the single best abilities in the entire game because it had like a super, super low cooldown. And if you use Shindai Ren first mode, so the first mode here, so you guys can see the M1s knock them back now, but they used to not knock them back. So you could just M1 spam, hit them with the F-Spec because like it used to not knock them back, and then you could M1 spam them again. And you guys can see just from that, I already did a lot of damage. So the M1s, I would honestly say the first mode is better for PvP if you want to use it for that. But like the F-Spec used to be so good. It was so much fun to use in PvP because there was nothing they could do about it. But yeah, so basically the M1s got nerfed. They still do a lot of damage. They're like one of the highest damage moves M1s in the entire game. And then obviously you do have the S-Spec, which does a lot of damage. The counters, the highest damage counter in the entire game. First ability does a lot of damage. Shindai Ren, big fat damage bloodline. You're not going to be disappointed with it. Now coming to 3rd place is going to be Alfie Rama Shizen. Now Alfie Rama Shizen, I'm going to be honest here, guys. This bloodline always has done like a ton of damage, but people like this bloodline was absurdly good for like all the wrong reasons. Like the first ability used to not first ability, my bad. The first ability still is pretty good, but it's like the weaker ability of Alfie Rama Shizen. The second ability is a AoE stun ability that actually does a lot of damage as well if they stay inside of it. Like it just did 80k. It's AoE. The third ability Alfie Rama used to be one of the best auto tracking moves in the entire game. It still is absurdly good and it still does a lot of damage, but a lot of the high damage component of Alfie Rama comes from the mode. So first of all, the M1s do 14k. The C-Spec of Alfie Rama also does a lot of damage. It does more the closer you are to it. You have the F-Spec, which spawns trees, and then you actually have the Weapon Spec, which also does a lot of damage. So a lot of the damage from this bloodline comes from the mode itself, but the moves also do a bit of damage as well. They just don't do nearly as much as the mode. But yeah, you guys will see if you use this bloodline on like bosses, you'll see the amount of damage like all of the mode abilities do. Like the mode itself is the high damage component of it. Now this wouldn't be a highest damage bloodline tier list without including Raiken Shizen at 2nd place. Now I'm going to show you guys this with a place lock stun here. 1 second. I'm going to show you guys this with the place lock stun before I show you guys the other abilities. So you have to place lock stun them and then you immediately use Raiken Shizen Shizen's ability. Look at that freaking damage. By the way, look at that damage. Look at that damage. Raikkonen Shizen has always been one of the highest damage bloodlines in the entire game. Just from the mode, if you place lock them right next to you and then use the C-Spec or Raikkonen Shizen, it does an absurd amount of damage. Like, they will instantly be within breakaway range from the C-Spec alone. And it's just the only issue with Raikkonen Shizen mode that just really isn't that great is you're sacrificing pretty much everything just for damage. People do use this quite a lot for PvE content, which is like obvious. I just did 360,000 damage that time. Yeah, it does a lot of damage. The actual moves themselves also don't do like a small amount of damage, but in all honesty, it's just like the main move that you're going to be using from Raikkonen is the third one in the mode. If you're actually using this bloodline, the third one has a massive AoE, does a lot of damage, disrupts fights and stuff like that. And then obviously the C-Spec does a lot of damage as well. Now, Honor Mention 1 is actually going to be the Rel bloodline. Now, the reason why I didn't want to include this on the actual video, and it's going to be an honorable mention, is because while it does a lot of damage, the cooldowns are like 2 hours. So realistically, it really doesn't do that much damage per second. But it obviously is one of the highest damage bloodlines in the game, which is why I had to include it on the tier list. And it is also, you know, borderline impossible to get. So actually including it wouldn't have been very good. He did hit me. And the counter cooldown is 2 hours if you miss it. I mean, 1 hour if you miss it. You have the first ability of it. Oh, I have to wait. All my abilities are on cooldown. I have the Relcoin ability, I guess. But yeah, this bloodline, the weapon spec and the C-Spec of it do a lot of damage overall. Like, they do 1 million between them. So it is a very, very high damage bloodline. Like, don't get me wrong. But I feel like just the DPS is terrible. And obviously the cooldown is very bad. And the rarity is just terrible. Now, Honor Mention 2 is actually just going to be normal Shizen. Now, this is pretty much just Raikkonen Shizen, but it does significantly less damage, like I'll show you. So I'll do that, and then I'll use Raikkonen Shizen C-Spec. You guys will see. So before I was doing up to like 360k, now I only did 290k, and that time I actually hit a significant amount of them. Like, I hit more than the Raikkonen one. So this one, I would say that this one peaks at about 300k, and the Raikkonen Shizen one peaks at about 500k if you hit like all of the arm abilities. The actual moves of Shizen also do less damage than Raikkonen Shizen, so it's worth mentioning. You know, most of the time you're going to be using Raikkonen Shizen for damage. Normal Shizen is basically just if you don't have Raikkonen Shizen. That's kind of like all there is to say about Shizen. Now, coming in first place as the highest damage bloodline in the entirety of Shindo Life is going to be Ashura Shizen. Now, I'm gonna be honest here, guys. This is Ashura Shizen. You're gonna see something about this tier of bloodlines, as in this group of bloodlines. They all do a lot of damage, but I'll show you guys the abilities first off, because they are the lowest damage parts of it. So the actual moves, 2 moves do around 126,000 damage. Third move doesn't really do that much damage, if I'm gonna be honest. It's just kind of like a dash ability. It does a decent amount. It does like 50k, but the real damage comes from, first of all, the M1s. So a single M1 combo does 65k damage. So that's insane. Obviously, you do actually have the F-Spec. Doesn't do that much damage, but it's a stun. It does around, like, I would say, like 60k. But the main damage actually comes from the C-Spec of Ashura Shizen. If the closer you are to them, the more it does. So this just did 90k. So if you do this combined with M1s, it'll just end up doing a lot of damage in a really quick amount of time. So yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say for Ashura Shizen other than that. It just does a lot of damage. The moves are also really good as well, but that doesn't really factor in on the tier list. It just does a lot of damage. Anyways, guys, that's actually it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys want to see more in the future, hit that like button, subscribe, comment below what your favorite part of the video was, and join my Discord.